Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm Faisal Buzdar. I'm the moderator for this session. I will be in conversation with Ujala Nazir, who is currently majoring in sociology at Kwantlen Polytechnic University in Vancouver, Canada. I look forward to being a part of this discussion, talking to Ujala, uh, because I know she's imbued with a sense of commitment and sincerity of purpose, because I have seen her over the past few years work hard on her application, focus on her grades, and also get involved in interests, passion, and causes that allowed her to grow as a person and learn those attributes which are very essential for tertiary studies abroad, especially in a competitive environment. And of course, in the process, she was greatly helped uh, by her enabling and supportive pair of parents, and the support she received was very valuable, as I have been observing that. And what role parents can play in helping students fulfill their dream of studying abroad. We will discuss that in a while. And the role, it's not just about financing the studies of children, but how parents can actually, enable them to develop that mindset. And as I have seen that her parents respected Ujala's choice and also helped her made choices independently. So, so the first half of the program, during that, I will be asking Ujala questions, and I'll ask her a number of questions around studying abroad, challenges of studying abroad, and how to overcome those challenges. So, and in the latter half, we'll take questions from the audience, and please feel free to come up with your questions, and you can ask your questions in whatever language you feel at home in. So let's now start the conversation. Welcome, Ujala, to this session. And so let's first talk about your academic program. Please tell us, what academic program are you currently enrolled in, and what made you, decide on this major?
I'm in sociology right now, in bachelor's, and I decided on sociology because I was taking it for a while before in high school. I was doing it in A levels and O levels, and so I decided that that was the best route to take because I was familiar with it, and also there were other aspects to it as well because I was thinking of taking criminology because I was interested in it. I took law, and actually that was one that I actually wanted to take because I was thinking that I could have gone on to become a lawyer, but that wasn't an option for me because I knew that it's challenging, and also if I was to work alongside studying, then I would not be able to focus on it as much because I'm not familiar with it, and it's much more challenging than sociology as I'm more familiar with sociology. So I actually decided to take that route because of a lot of reasons, such as the ones I just said.
Okay, great. And so when did you decide to, how did you find out that it is sociology that you're interested in? While putting together an application at home, or when you got there?
I already knew that I would be taking sociology because I had seen my sisters take it before as well, but also because I had a particular interest in it. I studied a lot of sociology books in high school as well, in like O and A levels, and I was particularly good at it, and my teachers had told me that I had a knack for it, so I just decided that I would rather go for something that I was good at.
Great, great. So, Ujala, one important part of studying abroad, I think the most important part, is putting together a good application, a competitive one. So tell us about the process. How did you put together an application, and if anybody helped you with this?
Okay, I don't think I'm going to sit here and lie to you about the truth on application processes and how that actually
No, no.
runs. Because like I could sit and tell you that you can put a lot of effort into it and sit and like concoct a perfect application, and then it will get you into the most high ranking university. I could tell you that, but unfortunately that's not the truth. Like I before choosing Canada, that Canada was my last option actually, because I had applied to the US before, and I had applied to a bunch of universities in the US, and not all high ranking because I knew my limits. So I applied to many universities in the US, and I had already ruled out UK because I knew that they specifically chose people that were able to fund their studies fully, with no help of a scholarship. So I didn't even consider UK as an option because I knew that it would not help me. So I considered US because people had told me that there was a greater chance of getting a scholarship there, and I applied to a bunch of universities in the US, and my application was very good, and I worked really hard on it, and I had help from several teachers that were very close to me and knew me as a student very well. But then when I had actually applied, and I applied for some scholarships and I had forgone some scholarships, I had applied as a self-funding student, and then I was surprised to find out that those universities tended to favor me more, the ones that I had applied to as a self-funded student. And I had been rejected from those that when I was asking for a scholarship in. And that's when I realized the difference between the financial capability that one has, or not even like the parents supporting you in that, because obviously students can't fund themselves. It's practically impossible. So then after that I realized that there was actually I had been demotivated a lot, because I was like, I've been working so hard for something, and then I realized that there's so many factors that actually go into the education system, and so many things that contribute to your application, and not just your skills or how well you were as a student. Because I can firsthand tell you that I had all A's in my O levels and my A levels, and I had students, my friends and even acquaintances, that had C's and D's and got into much better universities than me. And I had found out that it was because their parents funded them fully. Yeah. So that's how I realized that actually there's very little that you can do unless you are an exceptional student that will help you into getting into a good university. And a lot of it has to do with the amount of money that you are ready to pay. So that was one thing.
Yes. No, you are spot on, and I agree with you. And I asked you this question because I knew that on your part it was a conscious choice to, do a major in sociology and at a good university abroad, and also because you had to work hard on your application, on your case, and it's not a case of, parents pumping enormous amount of money into this venture. And as you said, that as your contemporaries and your friends who had grades not as good as you had, I mean, they ended up in good universities. So I mean, that's why we find your experience valuable, because I mean, through grit and of course through tact and hard work, you ended up in a good university. So now, Ujala, that you are in Canada, I think our audience would like to know what general funding opportunities, avenues are available to international students in Canada.
Very less, if I'm being honest. There's only some universities that do fund you, and that is there's one that I've heard, the Pearson Scholarship, but that is also, there are other factors that go into it, that you have to be extremely low income, like you have to be touching the poverty line to be even to have that accessible scholarship. But it's actually not for anything above the poverty line. If you are even if you are like lower middle class, maybe you aren't going to have that as an option because they don't even consider you then. And there are, of course, your skills that matter, or you are valuable as a student, but at the end of the day, I think most of it, or a lot of it, has to do with what family background you're from. So if you are from a very low income family, then there's a higher chance that you might get into it. But if you are better than a little better than that, then there's not a chance that you will get it. It's highly unlikely.
All right, all right. So, so what would your advice would be to prospective students from Pakistan, that how can they solve this challenging issue of finding funding? Do you think that putting together a good application is a key to that, and which includes references, essays, statement of purpose, and grades?
I would personally say not a lot. Like in some cases, I have heard that it helps, but then again, to create the perfect statement of purpose essays, there were a lot of students that had help from big counseling firms that helped in that process, where they helped them, and they only helped them when they knew that they were able to fund at least a little bit of the fee. So they would help them only then, not for an entire scholarship. They would not help you otherwise, because I had been through that experience. I asked them. There were a couple of firms that were just there at my school for general help, but they had asked beforehand that were you able to pay at least some of the fee, and I had said that it would be better if I was aiming for a full scholarship, and they said that won't be possible because we're catering towards students that will be able to pay at least some of the fee.
Okay.
So that was shocking to me. Yeah.
So there, I mean, it's it's quite an insight that those wanting to embark on tertiary studies in Canada have to be mindful of the fact that they will have to mobilize some resources and towards this towards this goal, and in order to get funding from the university. So it's otherwise it would be extremely difficult for them to get admission to a university there. And interesting. So Ujala, tell us that did any extracurricular activities at home help you with getting admission to university? Did it play any part?
I don't know if it did, because I did have extracurriculars back when I was in O and A levels, but there's just so many instances of students that were exceptional in my batch. There was one student that was the head boy. He participated in all of the debating societies. He was a great speaker, and he was inundated with a lot of knowledge. But he applied to a lot of universities, and he did get in, but he wasn't able to go because there was no funding for him. And he was spectacular as a student. He really was. He checked all of the requirements. But in the end, he's now studying here. He went to Lahore in University College Lahore, I think that's the name. So he didn't end up going abroad as he had planned, and even he was under the misconception that he would get into a very good university on the basis of him being such a great student, but that didn't happen for him either. And so I kept seeing these real life instances in front of me, and I was like, this is just terrible for students that are great, and they have so much capability in them to do greater, but they can't because they don't have the resources. They don't have the material resources at their disposal.
Definitely, definitely. I mean, yes. So it's quite unfortunate that, and so because yes, over time it's becoming quite difficult for our students, and you know there is a lot of pressure on universities abroad, and funding due to credit crunch and various other things, is the funding sources they have dwindled. So, Ujala, tell me another thing. Now we are, because before we go on to discuss, which we will do shortly, we'll discuss your experience abroad. We are right now discussing factors crucial to getting admission. I know personally that your both your parents they helped you make this choice, and they help you with getting admission to university. What do you think? What role can parents play? I mean, in helping student fulfill their ambition of studying abroad, other than financing their studies, partially or fully.
I think maybe just enabling the child to think outside the box and to approach anything and everything with an open mind. You can't be closed off to new opportunities or new experiences, because if you're not open to those things, then there isn't a chance that you will succeed abroad. Like there are instances where I felt like maybe it's not for me. Of course you second guess yourself and you doubt, but then you just have to kind of pull through, and you need that support from your parents, of course. And I will give my parents the full credit that they did give me that avenue where I felt like I was able to pursue anything. So of course their emotional support was there completely. So I think that one thing that they can help in is that just giving moral support.
Absolutely, absolutely. I asked you this question because I know for a fact that there are parents out there who are quite resourceful, but say they see little utility in allowing their children to go abroad. And I think it's helping their students get a very, competitive education I mean, goes a long way in building their career and building their personality and helping them grow as professionals and as learners. Okay, so Ujala, I mean, now that you have arrived in Canada and you have got enrolled in a program at this university, so tell us, what challenges did you face academically during your first semester, and how did you cope with them?
I think maybe the biggest would be me working alongside studying, because I hadn't experienced that before, right? I was here and I was only engaged in studies while I was here. I wasn't working. I mean, not that there is an opportunity to work in Pakistan, especially as a young girl without a degree, but so I wasn't fully prepared for what I was to face when I went. But once I started working, also you won't be able to get obviously a high paying job right off the bat. You will do a minimum wage job. You will have to be prepared for that completely, that you are going to do a minimum wage job and you are going to have to put in the manual labor just so that you can earn while you're there and have the freedom to do what you want without having to ask for your parents for money at every point. Like I didn't have to, unfortunately I didn't have to do that often. Like I didn't have to ask my parents for money, like unless it was the big tuition fees. I do give them that full credit that without them then it would have been impossible, because of course they were funding me. But you have to be prepared to work and go into the workforce and be prepared for anything, because there were so many students over there that used to work 40 hours a week while studying.
Wow, that's a lot.
And it was really impressive, because to be honest, the students here would never be able to do that.
It's like holding a full-time job.
Exactly, it's a full-time job. Of course, you're maybe not putting your mental effort, but you're putting all of your, manual labor into it, and you're also studying along with it. You're going to classes regularly. And then there were students that would go to class and then they would go to work straight after, and so that was, really eye-opening for me that they were doing so much in such a small amount of time. Everyone has 24 hours in a day, but what they were doing, and of course I don't want to put myself in the same, because sometimes I'd be like, this is too stressful, I'm going to reduce my number of work days. But they were doing exceptional things even there, like while working and studying. I mean, that's a really big achievement. So they wouldn't even we would talk and we would have these conversations, and they'd tell me that, coming from so and so background, it makes it hard to ask your parents for money. Like, so you would push yourself to the very limit, work so many hours in a week just so that you wouldn't have to drop to the level of asking your parents, we're in need of some money. And that was so impressive. It really did. It touches you. It's heartwarming that they would do so much just because, they don't want to put their parents through that, and they'd push themselves to that limit. And it really taught me a lot, because sometimes I'd think, I take a lot of things for granted, of course, but while working, I had learned to really appreciate, like budgeting money, knowing where I'm spending, on what I'm spending, So these sort of things I really learned, at the very start.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So being mindful of, where you stand and being grateful for the resources you have got, that's amazing. So Ujala, how did you find the transition from one educational system to another? Were there any skills that you realized that it was difficult to acquire those skills? Especially, I would say, because tertiary studies in the West, across the West, is rooted in research, whether it's natural sciences or social sciences. You have to do a lot of research work. So did you already possess basic research skills? And did your school impart you such skills here in Pakistan, or you had to acquire new research skills there?
I think a lot, like, I would give most of my credit to my parents for imparting that knowledge to me, because I had a range of resources at home. I had the cultural capital, as Pierre Bourdieu says.
Yeah.
I had the cultural capital, and so I used that cultural capital to, enable myself to, write well, or learn to write well. And so those things helped, but it was mostly at home. Of course, then once I went on to A-levels, I had particular teachers that really helped me. Like, I had my literature teacher, and I had my sociology teacher. Funnily, they were all social sciences teachers. So they all helped me, grow as a human being and really work on those skills that I had acquired from my parents. So those skills, I think I would say that my school helped me in some, or the teachers that I had helped me, because not every person gets those type of teachers, and I did. So I was lucky in that aspect, that I had teachers that helped me. They had written me very good references, and they had helped me every step of the way, even if I had to ask 2-3 times, but they had helped me. So I wouldn't strip them of that. Yeah. So teachers do help, yeah.
So this is quite insightful.
Yeah.
Yes, that you had parents who were quite an influence on you, a cerebral father and an artistic mother, and then you of course approached teachers, literature and sociology teachers. So if someone who does not have a pair of parents who can actually because all parents, they have their own strengths, unique strengths. So parents who cannot help with, developing critical thinking or research-related skills, I think they should increasingly approach their teachers so that they can learn those skills.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, as you are telling us, it must have helped you a lot to get there and embark on your studies without first investing massively in learning basic research-related skills. Uh, Great. So, Ujala, other than work, what was your biggest worry during the first semester and how did you cope with it? Including work, I mean, yeah, anything, yeah.
I think my biggest, I didn't, surprisingly, I didn't have a lot of issues with studies while I was there, except I think maybe my recent semester because I had there's a requirement that you have to do some science courses.
Okay.
And so I'm not as good as in science as I am in the social sciences. So I struggled a lot with that because with courses like those, you need to spend a lot of time just sitting at home and studying and going over materials and professors weren't exactly helpful in that aspect because they assumed that the student would know how to do it, but that's not always the case, right? So and on top of that, I was working as well, and I had increased some of my hours, and so it had put in a strain on me, and I had started thinking that okay, maybe maybe this is getting too hard, and it did. There were times where I was feeling like a failure, like I was like I can't do anything, even though you are doing so much, you are working and you're studying, but sometimes you doubt yourself and think that others can do it, why can't I? But there were a lot of times when I did struggle, but not at the start, I would say. Much later, I think I felt that. But that was because of the studies itself, not work or anything. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So it means that, if once you are able to get into the swing of things, you can, comfortably start a job, and of course, you can, work on your assessments. And of course, it involves being resourceful, and it's being, actually, very focused on what you are there for. So, Ujala, how can, potential students from Pakistan specifically wanting to, study in Canada can, strike this balance between study and work? What is the key?
Okay, you have to go with an open mind.
Okay.
Always, you will have to tell yourself that there are going to be times where you're going to face such things that you never expected, right? So that you will always have to tell yourself that you need to be open, and once and hopefully when you get there, if you decide that you want to start working, which I do recommend that most students over there work and study. Most always, they will always study and they will always be working on the side. So that it is recommended that you do that because it teaches you life skills that will help you later on in life, that even after you stop studying, once you get into the workforce, it's going to help you a lot because you're already going to be used to the environment, the work environment, and having to take in anything that comes at you. So one aspect is that. And then I think a few others would be that don't always go in with a rose-colored lens. Don't think everything is going to be handed to you on a silver platter. There are going to be hardships, and you're going to have to face them alone because you're not going to have parents there with you. Of course, there are students there that they're living with their parents and stuff. But I always see them lacking in real life situations. They won't know how to deal with things like once they come at them. So that most it just relates to being handy and being resourceful and being open to everything, and don't always go in so thinking that everything's going to be easy. So yeah.
Okay, great. So yeah, they should be prepared to
Yeah.
step out of their comfort zone and be out there and and get ready to face some roughness. Great. Ujala, related to studies is an important another important aspect. Uh, uh, I went to uni in Australia. So when I first arrived in Australia, it took me a while to make friends. So initially, I had to contend with terrifying loneliness because I went there thinking that I would, become friends with my classmates, but there were no classmates, permanent classmates to begin with. In each subject, you had a different set of
Yeah.
classmates. And it's not like, that after the class, you standing about in the corridor, hanging out with your friends. No, the class, after the class, they all dispersed, went their respective ways. And, some had to do their jobs, as you
Yeah.
said a while ago, and some had other classes to take. So tell us about your social experience, how you made friends there, and how prospective students can make effective social connections.
Um, I had a very similar.
Firstly, your experience. Yes,
I
yes.
had a very similar experience to yours, that I wasn't able to make any friends, especially in the start. There were because when I went, I was having online classes exclusively, so I didn't have any way to go to university and have any social interactions. I was limited to just a laptop, so there was no outside connection like that. So it was even worse in that situation. And then once I started going, everyone was still adjusting to the environment of being in person with each other. So everyone was just awkward. There was nobody that was willing to connect or talk. So it was very hard. I didn't make any friends, but I was comfortable with that because I'm an introvert mostly. So I don't need a large a group of friends to hang around with. But of course you feel lonely. You feel lonely because it's a place where people are always doing their jobs. They're always
Yes.
they're always so busy in their lives. There's always something to do. You will be studying, you will be going to work, or just the commute times would take you hours. So
Oh, yes.
you'd be
Yes.
stuck in travel for like 3 hours, like every day. And so you're stuck, and then once you get home, you're like, I just want to go to sleep. I don't want to do anything. So that was one thing that I had gotten used to then, that okay, this is just the way of things. You can't expect yourself to just make friends and have a big social circle and have a active social life while you're doing other things, because there were times when especially with the climate of Canada, it was also harder to be going out
Oh, yes.
that easily, like because transit systems were slower. I would, when I'd be going to and fro from work, I'd be spending 2 hours, like 4 hours every day. So basically 2 hours going and then 2 hours coming back.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so then there is no time in the day that left because I'd be, even if I'm going to school and if I'd have 2 classes back to back, I'm coming home tired, and then I'm like, there's no point in in interacting with anybody because your social battery runs out. So that is also one aspect that students need to be aware of, that you won't be having like wide social interactions where you're going out regularly or you're having fun. And of course there's fun in these regular things as well. You will learn to appreciate these things at once. So yeah, that's one thing.
Okay. So do you think that, over the weekends one finds the opportunity to socialize with, with other people there? And do you think that, still being able to find community on or off campus is important?
Um,
or there is no time for that at all?
I think you can if you like really manage your time. Like you will have to be really mindful of that then. But most of my friends came from work because I was working at a university. Luckily, that was my luck that I'm working at a university, and so there's students all around me. So you tend to make friends at work than you do in your normal setting. So I had co-workers that were my age, and they were my friends. So you tend to have more co-worker friends than regular friends, you know. So that's also another thing.
Yeah, that must be quite
Yeah,
helpful,
yeah.
you know. Yes, and that expands your social life, you know, if you're working in the university, surrounded by, you know, other colleagues from campus, both students and teachers, and then other people from the administration. Ujala, so I have seen personally that for many, it's very difficult to, you know, arrive in a different place and experienced a profound sense of alienation, or, you know, not alienation, let me put it differently, to experience culture shock. Because I have had students who initially struggled with, you know, living abroad, and they were not ready for, you know, new experiences. Did you experience any culture shock, any trivial or any significant, anything that, you know, made you laugh, or anything that, you know, made you pause and reflect? Any such thing?
The place where I'm like, I mean, Vancouver is a very culturally diverse place. So there's people from every country. Like you'll see, there's a big Latin community, there's a big Indian community, a very large Indian community, and so there's different. There's a Turkish community as well. So there's different, but Turkish community is in students mostly that come to study. So there, you won't be ever restricted to just, you know, one set of ethnicity, like an ethnic people or like ethnicities. You'll be, you know, exposed to, you know, variety of people who will be from different backgrounds, and so it wasn't as much of a culture shock because I was meeting so many people that weren't exclusively just white, or, you know, so it made it easier that way. But of course some places aren't always that diverse, so you will experience a culture shock in those places, but I didn't have to experience that a lot.
Yeah, maybe because, you know, you were already kind of prepared and had a cosmopolitan outlook on things. Great. Last question before we start taking questions from our audience. So, Jala, what do you think that prospective students wanting to study abroad, not just Canada, elsewhere in the West as well, or anywhere in in the globe, how can they make their experience more rewarding in terms of intellectual and academic growth and becoming a better version of themselves? I'm asking you this question because here is this, you know, very intelligent and confident girl sitting right across from me, relating her experiences to me. Someone, you know, I mean, someone who makes decisions independently, is resourceful, and has rich experiential reality. So, what your advice would be to those prospective students?
I think for students wanting to study abroad, again, then I would become a little repetitive.
No, please.
Because a lot of the ideas just kind of amalgamate, and you're supposed to take in everything, like from start to finish. You need to be aware that there are a lot of things in life that won't come easy to you, and sometimes you need to work extra hard for some things, and you will need to go out of your way sometimes. You know, you need to interact with a lot of people, know the right things to say, choose your company wisely, because over there, you know, abroad, there's a lot of, you know, there are a lot of people that will probably, you know, not be the right fit for you. So you need to also choose your company wisely. Always be mindful of who you're interacting with, and how you're interacting, and just learn how to be receptive.
Oh,
Always learn how to be
very
receptive.
important.
If you're getting feedback for something, don't take it to heart. Because there were a lot of times where I got feedback and I had to, rethink. I had to pause and be like, it's okay if I'm getting feedback. It's okay because, sometimes I'm so involved in just being right all the time. I'm like, I can never be wrong. But you need to, you need to learn how to be receptive. You need to learn how to, even if you're getting critique, take it, with an open mind and just be mindful.
Wow. No, that's very important, and there's a lot of wisdom, in your words. And what I gathered from what you have just said is that one should have a curious outlook on things, be ready to embrace new experiences, and one has to be introspective so that you can reflect inwardly and see how I can, do things differently, how I can respond to, external stimuli in a better way. So thank you, Jala, for, these intelligent words. I think let's now, turn to our audience and they have any questions. Jala would be happy to answer them.
Ujala, it was so nice to hear you speak, and I loved many of the things you said, but especially the last thing you said. Having studied abroad, I can relate to needing to learn how to take feedback. One of my questions for you, well, I have two questions. It's a two-part question. I remember one of the most amazing things that was so different for me going from Islamabad was the libraries. So I'd love to hear, what your experience was with using a library. I know you've grown up in a house that has a library, but, taking that to a larger scale. And really some of the technical aspects of navigating the library system there for work and maybe for pleasure. And the second part of my question is, what advice would you give schools and school teachers with regard to preparing? So Faisal asked you about advice you would give to parents, but what about schools?
Okay, to the first part about libraries and such, I did spend in the start. I spent a few months in the library while I was studying online. So I went to the library to just have a different environment. Navigating the library, I think. But I will talk from the perspective because I already have a library at home. So for students that don't have that, luxury, which is absolutely a luxury, it's going to be hard at first. But there are a lot of people around in a university that will be willing to help you find different books. But when you wander around, even that's very helpful. Because you will end up finding something that you didn't think you'd need, but then you end up loving it. So that's one thing that you can just even walking around, scrolling through books, you can find something that you might well like. And the advice I would give to schools, I think just equip their students with not always. The students that are good in class, pay attention to those students that are maybe quiet and wouldn't be that responsive, because those students tend to be actually very smart, and I did notice that in my university time, where the ones that spoke the most had nothing to say. So, always focus on the ones that are quiet, they're listening, So focus on those students a lot because they will actually end up having a lot more of substance to say than those that are constantly talking.
हमारे पाकिस्तानी स्टूडेंट्स के लिए आप क्या सजेस्ट करेंगी, क्योंकि हम यहाँ पर एक कंफर्ट जोन में रह रहे होते हैं, तो हम कोई सोशल स्किल्स या लाइफ स्किल्स बिल्कुल नहीं सीख पाते. अगर आपको बाहर जाना पड़ता है तो पता लगता है कि कुकिंग भी आपने खुद करनी है, ठीक है, और यहाँ पर इतने हमने नौकर चाकर रखे होते हैं, ठीक है, तो कभी हमने जो है देगची को या चाय को भी हाथ नहीं लगाया होता. तो इस बारे में हमें बताइए कि कौन सी सोशल स्किल्स या जो है लाइफ स्किल्स आनी चाहिए, ठीक है ना, चाहे वो बाहर जाते हैं या नहीं जाते. ओके.
गुड क्वेश्चन.
ये अच्छा सवाल है. मैं खुद खाना नहीं पकाती. तो मैं उधर भी ऐसे ही करती थी कि क्योंकि मैं काम कर रही थी तो काम पे काफ़ी ज़्यादा मैं खा लेती थी. एंड वहाँ पे जगह होती थी जहाँ पे इजीली एक्सेसिबल होती थी ये चीज़ें. हर जगह फराम होती थी, कुछ भी ले लो. तो उस तरह से आई थिंक बट उधर ज़्यादातर को करते हैं. स्टूडेंट्स को करेंगे, वहाँ से चीज़ें लेके आ जाएंगे, क्योंकि ग्रोसरी स्टोर भी पास ही होते हैं ना. लाइक थोड़ा सा ऑब्वियसली कम्यूट करना पड़ता है आपको, बस लेनी पड़ेगी, बट ये अब खाना तो लाजमी है ना, वो तो आप नहीं छोड़ सकते. तो ये चीज़ें खाना पकाना हाँ होता है, मतलब ब्रेकफास्ट. लेकिन ये भी है वहाँ पे टाइम नहीं होता, तो आपको वक्त ही नहीं मिलेगा कि आप बैठ के एक पूरी अपने लिए नाश्ता तैयार करें. ऐसे नहीं होगा कभी, क्योंकि मैं नाश्ता पूरा भरपूर करती हूँ घर पे, और जब मैं उधर होती हूँ तो मैं इतनी जल्दी में होती हूँ, मैं कुछ भी खा लूँगी. तो ये एक्सपेक्टेशन नहीं होनी, ये तवक्को नहीं रखें कि उधर आपको ये वक्त मिलेगा कि आप मतलब बिल्कुल एतमाद से आप बैठ के कुछ बनाएंगे. उधर यही आप आप होते हैं हर जगह कहीं जाने के लिए, या काम या स्कूल, तो आपको इतना टाइम वैसे होता नहीं है ये चीज़ें करने का. लेकिन ये लाइफ स्किल है, सीखनी पड़ती है. इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट. हाँ.
मेरा नाम नदीम मलिक है और मैं इस्लामाबाद बेस्ड एडवोकेट हाई कोर्ट हूँ. मैंने एमएस के लिए अप्लाई करना चाहा था, लेकिन मुझे कुछ रिसोर्सेज से पता चला कि कैनेडियन यूनिवर्सिटीज़ स्पेशली जो हैं वो पहले साइनॉप्सिस मांगती हैं कि वहाँ के जो टीचर्स हैं वो पहले आपके साइनॉप्सिस चेक करेंगे. अगर वो एक्सेप्ट करेंगे तो देन आपको एडमिशन्स मिलेंगे. तो क्या वाकई ऐसा है, या कुछ यूनिवर्सिटीज़ ऐसी हैं कि जो डायरेक्टली एडमिशन्स दे सकें आपके पिछले क्रेडेंशियल्स की बेसिस पे, और क्या बैचलर्स एडमिशन्स में भी ऐसा होता है या नहीं?
बैचलर्स एडमिशन में तो मैंने नहीं सुना, ये शायद उसके लिए मुख्तलिफ हो. लेकिन लॉ, अगर लॉ है तो फिर उनके लिए ज़्यादा रिक्वायरमेंट्स होती हैं. वो हमेशा हर यूनिवर्सिटी मांगेगी, उनके डिफरेंट रिक्वायरमेंट्स होंगी, वो कुछ और मांगेंगे, कुछ यूनिवर्सिटी कुछ और मांगेगी. तो ऐसा होता है कि दे विल प्रॉब्ली आस्क कि आप कुछ और उनको दें. तो क्रेडेंशियल्स पे इतना नहीं होता अनफॉर्चुनेटली. तो चीज़ें होती हैं जहाँ पे आपको यू विल हैव टू मीट देयर स्टैंडर्ड्स, वो आपको नहीं करेंगे. they will not adjust to your standards. तो ऐसे होता है. तो
इस सिलसिले में मैं कुछ कहना चाहूँगा. मुझे कनाडा के निज़ाम तालीम से ज़्यादा आगाही तो नहीं है, लेकिन चूँकि मैंने यहाँ एक यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ाया है और मेरे कुछ थे जो तालिब इल्म, वो बाद में कनाडा गए, उन्होंने अप्लाई किया, तो ये देखने में आया कि जब वो मेरे पास भी आते थे, मुझसे चीज़ें जो थे वो डिस्कस करते थे कि कनाडा में अगर आप जा रहे हैं एमएस के लिए, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट स्टडीज़ के लिए, तो वहाँ पे काफ़ी कम्पेटिटिव है जो एडमिशन का प्रोसेस. उसमें एक सीजीपीए मैटर करता है आपकी अंडरग्रेड डिग्री में, और दूसरा ये कि स्टेटमेंट ऑफ पर्पस, ये चीज़ें बहुत करती हैं, क्योंकि कनाडा में जो पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट वो है स्टडीज़ हैं इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट्स के लिए, वो हाईली सब्सिडाइज्ड हैं. वो यूके ऑस्ट्रेलिया की तरह नहीं है कि आप भारी फ़ी दे के कम रिक्वायरमेंट्स जो है फुलफ़िल करके आप यूनिवर्सिटी में चले जाएं. कनाडा में चूँकि स्टेट दे रही है ज़्यादा पैसा इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट को, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट उसके लिए, तो एक सीजीपीए और दूसरा ये एप्लीकेशन बहुत मैटर करती है.
गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन, थैंक्स फॉर द इनलाइटमेंट. मेरे 2 क्वेश्चंस हैं. फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन ये है कि योर गोल वाज टू स्टडी अब्रॉड, राइट? सो आप जब वहाँ गई तो आप तो लाइक वर्किंग अब्रॉड होगी ना, लाइक मोस्ट ऑफ योर आवर्स इज़ ऑन वर्किंग देयर. सो हाउ यू सी दिस थिंग? एंड द सेकंड क्वेश्चन इज़ डैट मेरी कुछ फैमिलीज़ हैं, रिलेटिव्स हैं, वो अपने फैमिलीज़ वापस भेज रही हैं. लाइक वो कोई लाहौर भेज रहा है, कोई इस्लामाबाद भेज रहा है, ठीक है? तो वो इस चीज़ को आप कैसे देख रही हैं? ये इसमें क्या रीजंस हैं दे आर सेंडिंग देयर फैमिलीज बैक, बिकॉज वहाँ के एजुकेशन सिस्टम से या जो भी है? तो ये 2 क्वेश्चंस हैं.
کیا آپ کی مراد ہے ذرا کچھ وضاحت کرنا چاہیں گے, آپ کس طرح فیملیز بھیج رہی ہیں؟
ہاں, میرے کزن ہیں احسن سائی صاحب, ہی از اے لائر ان ٹرنٹو, اور اچھے پروفیشنل ہیں اور ارننگ بھی اچھی کر رہے ہیں, اور انہوں نے ریسنٹلی اپنی فیملی بیریا ٹاؤن بھیج دی ہے بیکاز وہ کچھ کہہ رہے ہیں کہ آئیڈینٹی مسئلہ ہے, ریسزم ہے, لائک جو بھی ریزنس ہیں. سو اس چیز کو آپ کیسے دیکھتے ہیں, کیونکہ فیوچر میں آپ اسٹڈی تو ابراڈ کر لو گے, ٹھیک ہے, ایک کینیڈا میں, لیکن آپ اپنی پرسنالٹی کو یا اپنے آپ کو کیسے آگے لے کے چلو گے؟ سو یہ میرے
اچھا, اس
مائنڈ
میں ایک وضاحت کرنا چاہوں گا کہ اجالا بھی وہاں زیر تعلیم ہے بطور انٹرنیشنل اسٹوڈنٹ, اس کا ایکسپیرینس بھی وہاں امیگرنٹ کا ایکسپیرینس نہیں ہے. تو جو ریسزم کے, آئیڈینٹی کے ایشوز ہیں, ابھی اس سطح پر اس کا ان سے وہ نہیں ہے تعلق. کچھ یہ لیکن کہنا چاہے اگر اس سلسلے میں تو
ریسزم کا جہاں پہ میں رہتی ہوں وہاں پہ تو نہیں ہے, کیونکہ ادھر تو ہر ہر جگہ سے آتے ہیں لوگ, انڈیا کے اتنے لوگ ہیں اور بہت دوسرے ملکوں سے ہیں, تو ریسزم تو میں نے تو کم ہی دیکھا ہے. کینیڈا میں اسپیشلی, کینیڈا میں ریسزم بہت کم ہے, تو مجھے نہیں پتہ کہ وہ کس سلسلے میں انہیں واپس بھیج رہے ہیں. آئی کی ناٹ کنیکٹ ٹو دیٹ. لیکن اس کی اور بھی وجوہات ہو سکتی ہیں, اٹس ناٹ, یہ ایک چیز سے نہیں ہو سکتا, منسلک اور بھی چیزیں ہوتی ہیں. تو شاید ان کے لیے وہ ٹھیک نہ ہو, شاید ان کو ایجوکیشن سسٹم نہیں ٹھیک لگ, کیونکہ وہ تو فیملی بیسڈ ہے نا, میں تو ایک ہوں تو وہ ڈفرینٹ ہو گیا, اٹس ناٹ دا سیم تھنگ. فیملی کے ایشوز ادھر وہ بالکل مختلف ہوتے ہیں ایز کمپیئر ٹو جو ایک بندہ جا رہا ہے پڑھنے کے لیے.
صرف میں یہی کہہ رہا ہوں کہ میں بھی وہاں جاتا رہا ہوں, وہاں کی قومی لینگویجز میں پنجابی اور ابھی شاید اردو بھی شامل ہے, ہندی بھی, اور بہت سی زبانیں وہ ایز اے لینگویج ریکگنائز کی جاتی ہیں, اور اس میں کمیونیکیشن تک بھی الاؤڈ ہے.
میرا پہلا کویشچن جو تھا اس پہ تو وہ یہ تھا کہ لائک آپ وہاں, آپ کا گول تھا کہ اسٹڈی ابراڈ, بٹ آپ وہاں چلی گئی, لیکن اب وہاں آپ موسٹلی اپنے آورز جو ہے نا وہ ورک پہ دے رہی ہیں. سو میرا بھی یہ پلان تھا, بٹ آئی اینڈیڈ اپ ود اے ڈیسیژن یا پاکستان میں ایجوکیشن یونیورسٹی میں. وہ آپ کہہ رہی تھی کہ میرا ایک کلاس میٹ تھا جو لاہور میں بھی اسٹڈی کر رہے ہیں. سو واٹ یو تھنک کہ اس میں آپ کیا دیکھتی اس چیز کو, کیونکہ آپ کا گول تو اسٹڈی ہے, تو آپ اگر زیادہ ٹائم کام کرنے کو دے رہی ہیں تو واٹ یو تھنک؟
نہیں, فل ٹائم تو میں اسٹوڈنٹ ہی ہوں, بس وہ ویری کرتا ہے کہ پارٹ ٹائم میں جاب کرتی ہوں, فل ٹائم نہیں کرتی. تو فل ٹائم آپ کر بھی نہیں سکتے کہ دے وونٹ الاؤ یو ٹو ورک فل ٹائم, کہ آپ کام فل ٹائم کر رہے ہیں, اور جب آپ گئے ہوئے ہیں اسٹوڈنٹ ویزا پہ وہ کبھی الاؤ نہیں کریں گے, وہ آپ کو ڈیپورٹ کر دیں گے. تو یہ دس از اے مس انڈرسٹینڈنگ کہ آپ کام پہ زیادہ لگا رہے ہیں. وہاں پہ کچھ ہوتے ہیں اسٹوڈنٹ جو اپنے وہ چینج کر لیتے ہیں کہ وہ فل ٹائم ورک کر لیتے ہیں اور پارٹ ٹائم اسٹڈی کر لیتے ہیں. تو ان بچوں کا ہوتا ہے کہ وہ پھر لمبے گھنٹے کام کرتے ہیں, اور وہ پیسے کمانے پہ زیادہ ان کا فوکس ہوتا ہے اور پڑھائی پہ کم ہوتا ہے. تو اٹس ڈفرینٹ, پرائورٹیز ڈفرینٹ ہو جاتی ہیں پھر. لیکن میں فل ٹائم اسٹوڈنٹ ہوں اور پارٹ ٹائم ورک, لیکن اب کبھی کبھار ورک کو آپ کو کرنا پڑے گا ایڈجسٹ, کیونکہ آپ کی اسپینڈنگ ہوتی ہے ہمیشہ, تو اس حساب سے آپ کو کرنا پڑتا ہے یہ چیزیں. آپ یہ نہیں کہہ سکتے کہ آپ کام پہ اتنے گھنٹے لگا رہے ہیں, کیونکہ یہ سروائیول ہوتی ہے. you have to survive you have to work, and sometimes you will have to juggle those things. تو اس لیے
40 hours a week انہوں نے دوسرے اسٹوڈنٹس کے بارے میں کہا تھا.
Ali Ahmed, my name. Just want to ask کہ what we have seen globally کہ post COVID ایک inflation اور recession کی ایک wave آئی ہوئی ہے which we are observing in Pakistan as well. Like from past couple of months it's like 26-27% inflation جو ہے وہ چل رہی ہے, اور باقی کنٹریز میں بھی ایسا ہی ہے. And particularly about Canada, what I have been reading on the internet کہ وہاں پہ ریئل اسٹیٹ میں کافی زیادہ جو ہے وہ انفلیشن آئی ہوئی ہے, جس کا امپیکٹ میں بھی جو ابھی بتا رہے تھے کہ فیملیز آر شفٹنگ بیک ٹو دیئر اوریجنل کنٹریز. سو ایز اے اسٹوڈنٹ ڈو یو سی کہ کوئی آپ کو اس میں چیلنج فیس ہوا ہو, اور اوور آل کینیڈا میں کیا سچویشن ہے ود رسپیکٹ ٹو اکانومی کرنٹلی؟ تھینک یو.
That's true. Inflation काफ़ी बढ़ी है last year में भी and especially real estate के घरों के prices they've skyrocketed क्योंकि one reason is क्योंकि वहाँ पे Chinese population काफ़ी migrate कर रही है तो because their currency is much higher तो उसकी वजह से वो घर ऊंचे दाम पे ले लेते हैं और फिर जो थोड़े कम बैकग्राउंड के होते हैं वो फिर नहीं खरीद सकते घर बिकॉज द प्राइसेस आर आउट ऑफ द रेंज तो एक फैक्टर ये बहुत बड़ा है क्यों उधर एशियन पॉपुलेशन बहुत ज़्यादा है और वो उन्होंने थोड़ा कब्ज़ा कर लिया है घरों पे एंड रियल एस्टेट पर तो इसलिए ये रीज़न इन्फ्लेशन का सबसे बड़ी उधर रीज़न ये है दैट्स वन रीज़न हाँ एंड अब मैं देखती हूँ कि लाइक अगर जिसको घर लेना होता है वो अब स्ट्रगल्स काफ़ी ज़्यादा होंगी बट दिस इज़ ऑल्सो द इकोनॉमी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड नाउ एवरी प्लेस इज़ नाउ फेसिंग दीज इश्यूज़ क्योंकि अब है ही ऐसा दिस इज़ हाउ इट इज़
किसी चीज़ ने फैसिलिटेट किया गया
लाइक उधर रहते
हुए आपकी वहाँ की यूनिवर्सिटी ने इर्द गिर्द के माहौल ने या गवर्नमेंट ने किस हद तक सपोर्ट किया फैसिलिटेशंस क्या क्या हैं
स्टूडेंट्स के लिए आई थिंक obtaining वर्क परमिट कि वो वर्क परमिट आपको दे देते हैं आफ्टर यू स्टडी फॉर सम टाइम फिर आप वर्क परमिट पे आफ्टर यू ग्रेजुएट या इफ़ यू डन अ बैचलर्स तो वो बैचलर्स के बाद आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी देंगे उधर काम करने के लिए या आप अगर 2 साल का डिग्री कर रहे हैं या जितने भी साल का डिग्री कर रहे हैं वो उसके बाद आपको वर्क परमिट का ऑप्शन दे देते हैं तो यू कैन स्टार्ट वर्किंग देयर फुल टाइम वहाँ पे आप प्रोफेशनल जॉब देख सकते हैं या कोई सी भी जॉब ऑब्वियसली अकॉर्डिंग टू यू
ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम आफ्टर सम टाइम नहीं मतलब कि जब आपको चैलेंजेस फेस करने पड़ रहे थे उस टाइम पे उनको भी पता था कि आप चैलेंजेस फेस कर रही हैं तो उस टाइम पे उनकी तरफ से कोई फैसिलिटी थी आपके लिए
यूजुअली स्टूडेंट्स सब खुद ही झेल लेते हैं वैसे तो उधर they're dealing it all by themselves
all alone
that's one thing कि वो हमेशा बहुत रेयर होगा कि वो उधर peer counseling societies होती हैं
okay
for students तो if they are struggling तो वो counseling के लिए जा सकते हैं उनसे बात कर सकते हैं बट वो आपका दिल ही हल्का करेंगे वो आपको पैसे नहीं दे देंगे
ठीक है there is no financial support
yeah there's no
ट्रांसपोर्ट फेयर्स में डिस्काउंट है इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट्स को
हाँ सम यूनिवर्सिटीज़ वो ट्रांसपोर्ट फेयर दे देते हैं आपको लाइक इफ़ यू पे लाइक सर्टेन अमाउंट तो वो डिस्काउंट आपको मिल जाता है तो आप उतना नहीं पे कर रहे होते जितना नॉर्मल बंदा पे कर रहा होगा तो उसके लिए थोड़ा बहुत गुंजाइश हो जाती है बट एज अ होल मोस्ट स्टूडेंट्स हाँ
सपोज कुछ स्टूडेंट्स को ज़्यादा काम करना पड़ा है ठीक है उनके वर्किंग आवर्स थोड़े ज़्यादा हो गए ठीक है और यूनिवर्सिटी में पता चल गया जैसे हमारे यहाँ होता है कभी उस सिलसिले में उस स्टूडेंट को काउंसिल किया गया हो या उसको हेल्प आउट किया गया नो
ऐसा हुआ है कि उनको डिपोर्ट कर गया लाइक दे एक्चुअली गेट डिपोर्टेड सो
दैट्स हार्श
तो वहाँ पे वो क्योंकि देर वो रूल्स होते हैं ना हर जगह के रूल्स हैं वहाँ पे वो आपको ये नहीं देखेंगे कि योर फाइनेंशियल देर आप उससे पहले आप उनसे हेल्प मांग सकते हैं बिफोर यू स्टार्ट वर्किंग एक्स्ट्रा आवर्स आप उनसे पूछ सकते हैं कि मैं और क्या एवेन्यूज़ हो सकते हैं जो मैं ले सकती हूँ जिससे मुझे हेल्प होगी तो वो उसमें आपको हेल्प कर देंगे बट हाँ मोस्ट केसेस में यही हुआ है कि दे जस्ट गेट सेंट बैक फिर
ओके थैंक यू
Ujala, as somebody who's seen you as a student in Pakistan, you were always a very studious person. I remember all those long hours, those unending exams. You were always in exam mode, huh? And you used to spend so many hours studying, and you were always focused on your studies. But I remember, Abhi, recently you made a comment when I met you that when you went to Canada, and it wasn't difficult for you to adjust to that system of study. So you sort of said that it was actually easy. So can you comment on that? And the other interesting comment that you made a few days ago, आपने बताया था कि कनाडा में जो एक बहुत बड़ी दिक्कत आपको महसूस हुई वैंकूवर में वो आप कह रही थी कि वो जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो स्टूडेंट फ्रेंडली नहीं है और वो क्यों नहीं है स्टूडेंट फ्रेंडली, ज़रा इसकी वजाहत कीजिएगा और फिर ये भी बताइएगा कि आपने उसके साथ कैसे आपने मतलब डील किया, हाउ हैव यू ओवरकम दोस चैलेंजेस. थैंक यू.
आई थिंक वही बात हुई कि माई पेरेंट्स, क्योंकि when you grew up in an environment जहाँ पे you're always able to get the resources, जहाँ पे आपको especially pertaining to like study resources, then it becomes easier for you to adjust to the study environment over there, because the study environment over there is not hard at all. Like if you are like capable, and there are a lot of students that weren't obviously did not have the same environment as me, and they were just they were doing well. Of course, it wasn't like they were failing, but they wouldn't breeze through it. Maybe they would have to put a little bit more effort into it. So that's just one thing that I think it's more general. Like you would have to do that anywhere. And then secondly, the infrastructure, it isn't student friendly, and I was surprised to find that out, because I was expecting something completely different. I thought that commute would be a lot easier, and I would be able to get to one place much faster than I am currently. So there, I think America and North America maybe, and because I've heard a lot of American students face the same things, especially in smaller cities. They have the same problem where the infrastructure is very poor. There's just long roads and highways, and there is no transit system that can get you to one place to another fast enough, because then you're relying on ground transportation, and there's traffic, and everything is car centric. You have to be relying on a car all the time. People who have cars, they have it easy, and people who don't have cars will have to rely on the transit system that will be delayed 1-2 hours. There were so many times where I was stuck in the middle. I was at a bus stop, and I would find out that the bus that was gonna come is now delayed another hour. So I'm just standing there for an hour waiting. So that it happens a lot. It happens frequently, in fact, where and I have to be prepared that the next bus may come or may not come. So it's just all up to chance, these things.
I think, yes, we have had some very, thought-provoking questions. Yes. And so I thank you, Ujala, for, being here. And it was so illuminating talking to you. And I think we all gained, important and valuable insight into the topic at hand, which is, studying abroad, challenges of studying abroad and how to overcome them. And Ujala has shared a lot of, her distilled wisdom with us. So it, takes a lot on the student's part to, study in a competitive environment. I mean, it takes resources, it takes a firm resolve, and as Ujala said, you have to be receptive, and that you should be willing to embrace new experiences, and you have to be resilient. So those, who are not around or who are not, watching the live stream or are in here, they can, benefit from Ujala's, insight after the program, because now it's, available online. So with this, I thank you all. Thank you, Ujala, once again.